Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. Today we are talking about something that I think we all struggle with, and that's sticking to our goals. I know I've got like a whole list of New Year's resolutions, and I'm sure a lot of you out there do too, that have just fallen by the wayside.
Yeah. New Year's resolutions are kind of infamous for that.
Yeah. So today we are diving into an excerpt that's got some really practical strategies to actually make those goals happen.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it. This one. It's got a bunch of stuff that's based in the psychology and personal experience that can help us all kind of get things done. A lot of people struggle with this. It's really common. But the cool thing is that there's actually a lot we can learn about how our brains like approach goals and, motivation.
Yeah.
And this excerpt kind of dives right into that, starting with like the importance of specificity.
Okay, so like instead of just saying, I want to learn Spanish, which I'm totally guilty of doing,
Right.
what's a better way to frame that?
Well, the source actually gives a really good example. So instead of learn a language, it says aim for something like reach a B2 level in Spanish by the end of next year.
Okay.
And, the difference there is that it's measurable and it gives you a timeline,
Yeah.
which makes it a lot less daunting and it provides a clearer path forward.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I imagine like having those kind of concrete steps also helps to stay motivated.
Absolutely. There's definitely a psychological element to this. So measurable goals allow us to break things down into smaller chunks,
Okay.
and then track our progress. So each time we achieve something, even a small step, our brains release dopamine.
Ooh, dopamine. I like dopamine.
Yeah, it's the feel-good chemical,
It is.
and it reinforces the behavior. So it makes us want to keep going.
So we're wiring our brains for success.
Exactly.
I like it. I'm already feeling more motivated just thinking about it. Speaking of breaking things down, the excerpt also talks about how like overwhelming goals can actually lead to burnout. They use the marathon example, which is so true.
Yeah, it's like staring up at this huge mountain.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, I'm never going to get up there.
Right. I'm just going to turn around and go home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you just like focus on putting one foot in front of the other,
Right.
one step at a time, that summit becomes reachable.
Okay.
So instead of trying to run a marathon right away,
Yeah.
you start with shorter distances,
Yeah.
gradually building up,
Right.
and you celebrate those wins along the way.
I like that.
Yeah, to keep the momentum going.
So it's about progress over perfection, which is something that this excerpt really emphasizes. The author actually shares this personal story about trying to learn Chinese while studying at Cambridge, working as a doctor, and keeping up with their YouTube channel. Talk about ambitious.
It's a lot.
Right. I can barely keep up with like one thing at a time. But it's a really good illustration of how like striving for perfection can actually like backfire. The author even admits that they didn't succeed at everything perfectly, but they learned to prioritize progress.
Right.
So for example, let's say you plan a 2-hour study session, but life gets in the way and you only have like 45 minutes.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Instead of just giving up entirely, you just make the most of those 45 minutes.
Right. Each brick in the wall gets you closer, even if it's not laid perfectly.
I like that. I like that a lot.
It's all about those little wins.
It's easy to get discouraged, when things don't go exactly according to plan, but I like that reframing of it.
Yeah.
It's just like progress over perfection. Okay, so this next concept I thought was really interesting. The source talks about something called delayed discounting,
Okay.
which explains why our brains tend to prioritize instant gratification over long-term goals.
Yeah, it's that whole like, I want the cookie now
Yes.
versus waiting for something even better later.
Yeah, I want the cookie now.
But, thankfully, we can actually train our brains to like bridge that gap a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And one technique that the source suggests is visualization.
Okay, so like picturing yourself having already achieved that goal.
Exactly.
Okay.
So by vividly imagining our future selves, the successful goal-achieving versions of us,
Right.
we can make those future rewards feel more tangible and immediate.
Okay.
So it's like we're tricking our brains into thinking that future success is closer than it actually is.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's making those long-term goals feel more motivating because they feel closer,
Yeah,
like they're within reach.
exactly.
I like that. What's interesting is the source even suggests using technology to like make that visualization even stronger,
Oh, yeah.
like creating a visual representation of your future self using an app like FaceApp.
Oh, that's cool.
Right. That's really interesting. I might have to try that.
Yeah. It's a creative way to tap into the power of our own minds.
Totally. Okay. Another simple but effective tip that the source highlights is the power of just writing things down.
Yeah.
It sounds so basic, but research shows people who write down their goals are way more likely to feel satisfied with their progress.
Yeah, they're much more likely to actually achieve them as well.
Really? Why do you think that is? Is it just the act of putting pen to paper somehow solidifies the commitment?
I think so. It's it goes from this fleeting thought to a concrete statement of intent.
Yeah.
Plus, that written goal acts as this visual reminder
Right.
to keep us focused.
Yeah, you've got this mini motivational poster just staring back at you from your desk.
Exactly. So, speaking of accountability, the source author talks about how their sisters and friends have been incredible accountability partners for them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting because it brings up this point that we don't have to do this alone.
Absolutely not.
Having someone to check in with and celebrate those wins with and offer support when things get tough can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's like having your own personal cheerleader in your corner.
Right. And there are so many different ways to find that kind of support, right? It could be a friend, a family member. There's so many online communities now dedicated to, all sorts of different goals.
Oh, yeah. You can find groups for practically any goal imaginable these days.
That's amazing. So it's having this built-in support system, even if it's virtual.
Exactly. And for people who prefer a little more structured accountability, there are even apps designed for goal tracking.
Oh, wow.
So they have features where you can set reminders, log your progress, even connect with friends or coaches who can hold you accountable.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It's really cool.
So it seems like technology can be this really powerful tool for goal achievement when it's used strategically.
Oh, for sure. It's all about finding what works best for your personality, your preferences.
Yeah.
Some people thrive in those group settings while others prefer one-on-one support.
Right.
It's about tailoring your approach to fit your individual needs.
Okay, so let's do a little recap to make sure all of these fantastic tips are sinking in. First, we talked about the importance of specificity and realism. So instead of those vague goals like learn a language, we're aiming for something measurable, like reach a B2 level in Spanish by the end of next year.
Exactly.
And remember, we're breaking down those big goals into those smaller steps.
Don't try to run the whole marathon on day one.
Right. Exactly.
Start with those shorter distances and, celebrate those smaller wins. Keep that motivation going.
Keep those little dopamine hits coming. And even if you don't hit every milestone perfectly,
Yeah.
don't beat yourself up about it. Embrace imperfection. It's progress over perfection every single time.
It really is.
Yeah.
Focus on that journey and celebrate those small wins.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of visualization.
Spend some time imagining yourself having already achieved those goals because it can really help those future rewards feel more tangible,
Right.
more motivating.
And to really cement those goals, write them down.
Yes. Get it out of your head and onto some paper.
Out of your head on the paper. And make sure you put it somewhere that you can see it every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make that goal a constant presence in your life, out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right. Okay. On to accountability.
Yeah.
Find yourself an accountability partner, whether that's a friend, a family member, an online community, or even an app. That external support can make all the difference.
Huge difference.
Now, the last concept the source dives into is all about decluttering. Not just your physical space, but also your mental space.
I love this part.
It's so interesting. I'm so bad at this. The source uses this analogy of a cluttered store with all these flashy displays that are designed to distract you and get you to buy things that you don't need. It's visual chaos. And I know for me, when my desk is a mess, I can't get anything done. Totally. That's a really common experience. And it's due to something called decision fatigue.
Yeah.
So when our brains are overwhelmed by too many choices, we have less willpower left to actually focus on those important tasks.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so simplified environment equals less mental clutter.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the source suggests creating this clean, distraction-free space
Okay.
that keeps your goals front and center. Minimize the visual clutter so you can reduce that mental clutter and free up all that mental energy.
I like that. That's really good advice. Makes me want to go on a decluttering spree right now.
As long as you don't get so distracted decluttering that you forget about your goals.
Okay, you got me there. Good
Yeah.
point. But speaking of decluttering, maybe that's a good segue to our next point.
I like it. Let's do it.
Okay, so we just talked about, decluttering, getting rid of all that visual chaos.
Right. Visual chaos, mental chaos.
Exactly.
All connected.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, right? We talked about setting specific and realistic goals,
Hmm.
embracing imperfection,
Right.
visualizing our future selves, writing those goals down, and even decluttering, like we just talked about, our physical and mental spaces. It's amazing how much actually goes into achieving goals.
It really is. It's a multifaceted process,
Yeah.
but the source does a really great job of kind of breaking it down into these manageable steps,
Yeah.
and it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
These strategies kind of work together to create this system that supports your goals.
Yeah, I like that. Let's actually dive back into that accountability piece for a second.
Okay.
Because the source author specifically mentions, how important their sisters and friends have been in helping them to stay on track. What are some other ways that people can find that kind of support if maybe they don't have that built-in network?
Well, there's so many options these days.
Hmm.
Online communities can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, there are groups dedicated to practically every goal imaginable, from learning languages to starting businesses to training for
Oh,
marathons.
wow.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
And you can find people who are working towards similar things, share your progress, get advice, motivate each other.
So it's like having a built-in support system, even if it's virtual.
Exactly.
Okay.
And for those who prefer maybe a little more structured accountability,
Mm-hmm.
there are even apps specifically designed for goal tracking.
Really?
Yeah. They often have features where you can set reminders, log your progress, and even connect with friends or coaches who can hold you accountable.
Oh, wow. That's neat.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So it seems like technology can really be this powerful tool for goal achievement when it's used strategically.
No, for sure. It's all about finding what works best for your personality and your preferences.
Right. Yeah.
Some people thrive in those group settings, while others prefer that one-on-one support. It's about tailoring your approach to fit your individual needs.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap just to make sure all of these fantastic tips are sinking in. First, we talked about the importance of specificity and realism. Instead of, those vague goals like learn a language, we're aiming for something measurable like reach a B2 level in Spanish by the end of next year.
Love it.
And remember, breaking down those big goals into smaller steps is key. Don't try to run the whole marathon on day one.
You'll burn yourself out for sure.
Exactly. Start with those shorter distances and, celebrate those smaller wins
Yes.
to keep that motivation going.
Keep those little dopamine hits coming.
Exactly. And even if you don't hit every milestone perfectly, don't beat yourself up about it.
No, give yourself a break.
Embrace imperfection.
You got it.
Progress over perfection every single time.
Love that. Focus on the journey and celebrate those small wins along the way.
Yes.
And don't underestimate the power of visualization. Spend some time imagining yourself having already achieved those goals. It can really help make those future rewards feel more tangible.
Right.
More motivating.
You're motivated. And to really cement those goals, write them down.
Get it out of your head and onto some paper.
Exactly. Out of your head onto the paper and put it somewhere you can see it every day. Make that goal a constant presence in your life.
Yes. Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right. And find yourself an accountability partner, whether that's a friend, a family member, an online community, or even an app.
Doesn't matter what it is, just find someone who can support you.
Exactly. That external support can make all the difference. And lastly, clear the clutter.
Yes.
Not just physical clutter, but mental clutter too.
All important.
Create a clean, organized environment to help reduce that decision fatigue and free up mental energy to focus on your goals.
It's amazing how much our surroundings can impact our ability to focus and be productive.
Totally. Small changes can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, drawing inspiration from this great excerpt. What are your final thoughts for our listeners who are ready to take action?
Well, it's been a really great deep dive into the psychology of achieving goals. And, it's not about some drastic overnight transformation. It's a continuous journey. It's okay to stumble along the way. What matters is that we keep getting back up, learning from those setbacks and continuing to move forward.
I love that. Progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And before we go, I want to leave our listener with a thought-provoking question.
Ooh, I like it. Hit me.
Okay, so knowing that progress is key, what is one small step you can take right now towards a goal that you've been putting off?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a giant leap. Maybe it's finally writing down that goal or decluttering a corner of your workspace or reaching out to a friend for support.
Whatever it is, take that step.
Yeah.
Make that commitment to yourself.
I love that. It's so easy to get caught up in thinking, like achieving goals is all about these big sweeping changes. But I think, as we've been talking about today, it's really those consistent small steps that really make a
It's
difference.
like building momentum.
Right.
Each small action kind of propels you forward. And before you know it, you've covered this like remarkable distance.
Yeah. And I think, it's not about being perfect. It's
Yeah.
just about showing up,
Mm.
even when it's hard.
Yeah, even when you don't feel like it.
Exactly.
Consistency is key.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is that, all of those small actions, they often like create this ripple effect that inspires us to kind of take on even bigger challenges.
Yeah, and it just builds that confidence.
Totally. That's what I love about, kind of diving into these topics. It's
Yeah.
not just about gaining knowledge.
Right.
It's about like sparking action and empowering ourselves to kind of make these real changes in our lives.
Totally. And who knows, maybe this deep dive will inspire our listener to finally tackle that goal that they've been putting off.
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. And, we've given them a toolbox full of strategies from, setting specific goals to embracing imperfection to finding accountability. Now it's up to them
Yeah, they've got all the tools.
to take those tools and build something amazing.
Exactly. And, remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
Reach out to friends, family, online communities, or even, consider working with a coach. There's support out there if you need it.
That's a great point. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I just want to leave our listener with one final thought. Remember that you are capable of achieving incredible things.
You really are.
It's not always easy,
No.
but with the right mindset and the right strategies, those goals are absolutely within your reach.
So go out there, take action, and make those dreams a reality.
I love it. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deeper into those topics that set your soul on fire.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure diving into this with you.
And with you, dear listener, thanks for joining us.